Okay, welcome to our part 2 for our discussion. So let's have the first lesson for module 3, the development of periodic table. Now, periodic table has a very, very long history. Now, why they come up with making this periodic table? Now, the purpose of making the periodic table is to have an organization of these elements. Kay nagdaghan naman, nagkadaghan na kayo ang ilahang na-discover. So, they need to organize. Kaya dili man pwede nga parehas tong balay ang atuang bed, ibutang na pwede sa CR, ang ato ang plato to dito sa CR, dili. We put things in their proper places. So that's the reason why they come up with this periodic table, to have an organization of all the elements that are being discovered. So first we have Antoine Lavoisier, who tried to group the elements, metals, and non-metals. Then we have Johann Wolfgang de Beriner, who observed that there are chemical elements that has the same properties. Unfortunately, ang yahalang nailhan aning panahon na, yahalang na kanan nga pag mo react sa sodium, the same ang iyahang reaction property, is si chlorine, si bromine, and iodine. During this time, very limited pa lang ang mga chemical elements. 21 pa lang ang chemical elements nga ilahang na-discover. So muna, gibutang niya nga na-assign group into 3, which they call as the triads. Then we have John Newlands. John Newlands have come up with the law of octaves. Now, the law of octaves state that the properties of the elements in one, every 8 elements, there is a repetition of their properties. Munang gitawag niya law of octaves. Kaning octaves, gikan niya siya sa music nga term. Gikuha niya kay musician man pud ni si John Newlands. Aside sa iyang pagka-chemist, kuhan pud siya musician. So, he was able to kanang observe that after every 8 element, the properties repeats itself. The same is true with Dmitry Mendeleev, which he comes up with his law of the periodic law, that after certain rows of element, nag-repeat ang iyahang kanang property. Manang gitawag niya periodic law. So in one period, in one line, then line silag element, and then on the second line, mabalik na po ang iyang property from the first element in one period. So, nganong nahimong controversial? So what you can see, ako ang gipa-search sa inyong article, nganong nahimong controversial si John Newlands at Dmitry Mendeleev. Dmitry Mendeleev is the father of the periodic table. Siya ang naghimo, siya ang gi-credit sa periodic table nga itong gigamit now. Anong dili man si Mendeleev nga parihara man actually. Then lain lang og term ang ilahang na-discover pero parihara og context. Diba na siya law of octaves, after every 8 element, nag-repeat ang iyahang properties, which is true. Gitawag na to siya octet rule. The same is true with the periodic table. After 8 element, nagbalik ang iyahang property. So nganong si Dmitry Mendeleev man nagwala man pansin si Newland. So the publication of Newland comes ahead before kay Mendeleev. Now, there are 2 reasons. He left blank spaces in his periodic table for undiscovered elements. And second, he corrected some of the atomic weight values of some chemical elements, that is indium and uranium. So aside from that, Mendeleev published his research internationally, while si Newlands, wala na siya nag-leave og mga kanang spaces for those undiscovered elements. Naara pa gyud sa England iyahang published nga law of octaves. So gamay ra iyang audience. Mutong si Dmitry Mendeleev kay dako man ang iyang audience, tibok world man, kay international man iyang pag-published sa iyahang paper. nga the law of the periodic law. So therefore, mas cater ang kanang kang Mendeleev. That's why the periodic table is saan siya? Credited to Dmitry Mendeleev. So Lothar Meyer also created his own version but in tabular form. Naka-graph siya. Wala niya gipareha kay katong kang Mendeleev nga naka column. Iha tabular form. And then Henry Moseley used X-ray to measure the wavelength of the elements and correlated this measurement to their atomic numbers. And because nag-discover na siya sa atomic number, so that is the birth of the modern periodic table. Dili na katong kang Mendeleev ang gigamit, kundi we have a new periodic table. Pare-pareha ra gyapon og arrangement, but kang Mendeleev man god, they are arranged according to the increasing atomic weights. While in the modern periodic table, because Henry Moseley have measured their atomic number, they are arranged in atomic number. So based on the increasing atomic number na ang arrangement sa atoms in the periodic table. Thus, it is called modern periodic table. Now, there are three schemes in labeling the periodic table. Do you have your periodic table?
No.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you must have now, at this point, you must have your periodic table. Mao gina siya tong Biblia diri sa chemistry, ang ato ang periodic table. Sige na po, wala sa tuwa. So, lantawan na yung periodic table sa taas ng mga column. Diba, naa siya number. Naa siya nakaingon ani. Na 1A, 2A, na po'y 3B, na siya 3, tapos 4B. So those are the two different schemes. Now, si Amerika o si Europe, di na sila magsinabot. Si Europe, syempre, loyal sila ni Roman numerals. Munang Roman numerals silang gigamit. While si US uses the Arabic numerals. Kaya para daw dali ra kay ma-determine kay kani daw dili daw masabtan kay sa mga bata sa mag-read. Pero kasagaran sa na-publish nga periodic table ang gigamit kay European scheme. Now, for kaning siya, napagid sila aside sa ilahang group number or group classification, tapos siya group name. For 1A, lang tawag gani din na sa yung periodic table. It is the whole line, from top to bottom, it is called alkaline metals. For group 2A, that is bakante na siya. Lithium ang gaunana na, alkaline earth metals. Then for boron group, that is 3A. 4A is carbon group, 5A is nitrogen group, 6A is chalcogen or oxygen group, 7 is halogen group, 8 is the noble, rare, or inert gases, but we mostly call it noble gases. For group 2, kanang nasa center, kanang naadin ha silang silver, silang copper, naadin ha sila. So, gitawag na sila og transition metals. Nganong 3 ang naguna? Actually, after 2A here, bakante na siya. Dira na nakita nimo si transition metals. After transition metals, ma-insert na din si 3A. So, mo nang nag-start siya 3B dire para ang number masunod. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then after 10, followed by 1, 2, balik na po siya dire sa 3A, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So, inaana. Karon kay medyo, di ba, medyo libog siya pagka-arrange nila. So, para mahilom ning duha kay sige ra mag-away sa America ug si Europe sa ilahang scheme. The International Union of Pure and Applied Chemistry resolved this controversy by labeling it from column 1 down to column 18. So para wala na yung mag-away. Dili na sad malibog kay. Nganong si B ga-start sa 3. Dayon si A ga-start sa 1. Para di na sila mag-away. Any question? Any question on this part? Before we proceed to the periodic properties.
None, ma'am.
None. Okay, so let's have the periodic properties. So in the periodic properties, we see here the periodic properties. Muna siya natin ha, mga electronegativity, So periodic trends are the properties of elements that reoccur in the periodic table. So, say for example, atomic radius. Nanong ang atomic radius? From left to right, the atom decreases nga. Nagdugang man ang tataw. Proton, neutron, and electron, di ba? From left to right, the number of particles or subatomic particles increases. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Ano man nga, gamay man hinon siya. That is because, so say for example, let's have the whiteboard. So say for example, na kay atom. Na siya'y nucleus na gamay. So ang mga electron dire, they are free to move. Kaya nga naman, gamay raman ang iyang electron. Next, nagdugang ka og proton. Nidako-dako ang imuhang kanang gani nagdako ang imuhang nucleus. Nagdugang baka og orbit niya, nagdugang baka period, diba wala. So it means ang electron na nga dire rasad ka nagdugang ana nga orbit. So imuhang nucleus nagdako, ang imong orbit wala. So ang imuhang nucleus karon kakusog ang iyahang force, ang nuclear force, yet the distance sa imuhang electron to the nucleus ay wala na change. So therefore, naa siya gitawag og attraction force. Munang ang orbit mo shrink siya, medyo mo paduol siya sa imuhang nucleus siya na even. Mo nang mugamay siya. So more nga nagdugang na pud dinha, pagdugang na pud dinha, mas magkagamay ang distance kay tungod sa ilahang attraction. That is why from left to right, the atomic size of the element decreases, while from top to bottom, it increases because you are adding a period. This is every one period is one particular orbit. On the second period, that is the second orbit. On the third period, and that is the third orbit. So, kada isa ka line represents one orbit. First, gikan diri nga isa, nahimong duha, so mas dako na gid siya. How much more kung moabot siya og 7? So that's the reason why the atomic radius from top to bottom it in. Now ionization energy. The ionization energy required to remove, or an energy required to remove an electron from a gaseous atom to an ion completely. So, say for example here, kung ang imong atom bukol sa nucleus, is it easier to remove the electron?
No, ma'am.
No. So that is why, kung nag-decrease ang imong atom padulong dira, energy po niya imong i-need para ma-remove sila will also will increase. So, kung nagpaduol man ang electron sa ilahang nucleus, ang energy nga muhang needed to remove them will increase. But from top to bottom, tungod nagkalayo ang electron, it's getting easier to remove the atom. So the energy you need to remove that atom will decrease. Now, electron affinity reflects the ability of an atom to accept electron. So, kung ang atom nagkagamay, nagkaduol ang mga electrons sa iyang nucleus, is it easier to accept new electron or not? Hello? Is it easier for an electron to be added into the atom if the electrons are near to their nucleus? Ayo. Anyone? Anyone? Let's have the whiteboard. Let's illustrate that one. Asay easier ka magdugang og electron? Diri nga part or diri nga part? Kang A or kay B? Imagine lang nga pareha kadagko ang ilang nucleus. Asay mas dali magbutang og electron? Kay A. Ngano man,
A.
taas naman daan ang iyahang attraction force. Kung naay positive, magduol-duol din ha, dali ra siya nga nganong positive? Negative. Kung naay negative nga magpaduol, kani siya, negative na manggudaan. So, di ba, we all know that if they have the same charge, they will repel. So, iyahang ipalayo na siya masyado. Pero kani, kay tungod kay duol-duol ang positive, taas ang yung nuclear force, mas dali siyang mapaduol dito. So, that's the reason why the electron affinity from left to right, it increases just like the ionization energy, and from top to bottom, it decreases. Kay mas dugay man kang mag-add anhi og kanang electron. Kay dako naman kaayo siya. Layo na siya sa iyahang nucleus. So wala na attraction force kaayo, wala na nuclear attraction. How about electronegativity? So electronegativity is a measure of the attraction of an atom for the electrons in a chemical bond. The higher the electronegativity of an atom, the greater is its attraction for bonding electrons. So, it is just like, or it has the same concept as your ionization energy. So, kung taas ang iyahang energy, nga kanang mo-attract og electron, I mean electron affinity, not ionization energy. If taas ang iyahang ability to attract the electron, so it means the probability of a certain molecule to form a bond also increases. Kay dili man ka maka-attract og electron kung dili ka maka-form og bond. So attracting electron meaning you are forming bonds. So that's the reason why we have imuhabag yung kwaon ang tanan ang tibok electron or mag-share lang mo. So that becomes the bond, the two types of bond. Is it clear? Nasabtan ang
Yes,
electron
ma'am.
negativity.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, electronegativity has value from 0.7 to 4. Pinakadako niya is si fluorine. Ang pinakagamay niya is si francium. Kaya di ba si francium man ang pinakadako nga element. So, dili kayo siya mag-need og electron. So, by determining the difference between two atoms, then we will have the type of bond they will create. Say, for example, from 0 to 0.4, that becomes a non-polar covalent bond. It means the two atoms share their atoms equally. If from 0.5 to 1.6, that is polar covalent bond. This means that one of the atom has a greater share of the electron compared to the other, which we will discuss thoroughly next on the next kanang module. From 1.7 to 2, that is polar covalent bond, given it is a metal or both of them are non-metals. But if metal and non-metal siya, that is considered ionic. So there's 2.1 and above, that is considered for metal and non-metal only, that is ionic bond. So ano siya example ana niya. That is the example of how we determine. Are we familiar with water? So water, if we determine the bond between hydrogen and oxygen, hydrogen has 2.1, oxygen is 3.5, so 2.1 minus 3.5, the absolute value or the absolute value of their difference is 1.4. So since it's 1.4. If we go back here, 1.4 belongs to this. Then it is a polar covalent bond. So, polar covalent bond. We will have more of that later when we discuss the types of bond. And that is the last part. Any question?
None, miss.
None, ma'am.
Okay. So, can we have a makeup class for module 4? Do you have any vacant time? Hello? Or you can just send me your vacant time so that we will have our makeup class for module 4, because last week we didn't have our class because of the internet connection. So that's why we have to make up for that. Because
Karon nga day, ma'am.
pwede tomorrow.
Tomorrow,
Because,
ma'am, kay 4 to 5 among vacant.
sige, tomorrow 4 to 5. Kasi tawag ani, kanang, we have to understand the kanang basic for chemistry before we go to more details. So this module 2 and module 3 is the basic one. When we go also with module 4, when we start with the lesson for module 5, kailangan application na to siya ani nga mga information. So dapat clear ni siya nga topic sa tuwa. So if you have questions, please chat me on our group chat para mabasa pod sa inyong mga classmates. Am I clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.